until I am done.
I look forward to
Until I am
responding.
done, and then I will give you time to speak, okay?
Look forward to the facts.
Thank you. I'll look forward to your response, whether they're factual or incorrect either.
This hearing got heated fast. When Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tried to interrupt Representative Stacey Plaskett as she criticized rising costs under the Trump administration, Plaskett immediately shut him down, declaring, "When you come to someone's house, you respect their rules." From there, the hearing turned into a sharp debate over inflation, wages, and whether American families are actually better off.
For being here today, Ms. Plaskett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witness for being here this afternoon with us, making yourself available and answering questions and engaging with the members of this committee. I first wanted to share that, I think back on the last administration, this administration, the transition. There's always going to be changes, ideas and changes, mechanisms in which we're done. But I think we need to talk truth about what the numbers were in each one of those. Now, we know that at the time of President Trump's inauguration, unemployment was at less than 4%. Inflation was below 3%. And the numbers that have been put out about where inflation is now has not really changed month to month. When we look at CPI, the Bureau of Labor statistics, those numbers have not changed significantly from the downward trajectory that happened from 2020. We have continually gone down in inflation. Economic growth at the time of inauguration was at 2.8% in real terms. And that was, according to World Analysis, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The bottom 20% of workers saw the largest real wage gains during the Biden administration. We're going to give Jackett's jacket here in this committee. Additionally, we have seen since January 20th that the stock market overall has gone down 1.3%, and gas has gone up.
Ma'am, that's incorrect.
Excuse me. Let me get something straight with you first here. I've seen you interrupt everyone. When you come to someone's house, you respect their rules. And in this house, we don't interrupt individuals. And you're not going to interrupt my time. I'm going to give you time to respond. You may want to jot down some notes about things that you don't agree with me on so that you can respond to them at that time. But while I'm speaking, as the person holding this time, you will refrain from speaking, sir, until I am done.
I look forward to
until I am
responding.
done, and then I will give you time to speak, okay?
Look forward to the facts.
Thank you. I'll look forward to your response, whether they're factual or incorrect either. Now, one of the things that I noticed that the president, our present president, has said that he was going to do was going to bring down the cost of living. But as we all know, costs have not gone down. Whether they have remained stagnant at the amount that they were at the time of the inauguration or before, or they have gone up, real costs have not gone down for the American individuals. I know that my colleagues want to talk about in this bill what is happening in terms of their support for the American worker. There's a discussion I hear from several colleagues that if this legislation is not passed, it will then trigger the largest tax hike. That's because you made the largest tax cut in 2017 with this bill. And it's not to say that we cannot negotiate, as Congress has used to do, something in between there. It does not have to be this bill. It could, in fact, be something in between there. But that's not what we're doing here in this Congress at this time. Additionally, we have seen that, there's discussion about overtime taxes, overtime, the credit that's going. We know that only 12% of hourly workers receive overtime. And then the discussion about tips, which is only going to affect 2.5% of American workers, and only 40% of tip earners actually file federal taxes. So we are not going to affect everyone that we need to affect. Unfortunately, everyday Americans, the outcome of the supposedly strategic legislation that we have here is very predictable. We're watching the cost of bread, bacon, butter rise, egg prices continuing to go up, and the rising cost is not going to happen. One individual who I follow, James Serwicki, a classmate of mine actually from prep school who was at Yale, discusses that there's no acceleration of economic growth in this legislation because there's not being meaningful cutting of tax rates. We are going to be reducing spending, that's correct, but there are intended consequences to that as well. Additionally, let's talk about DOGE. 2 trillion, 1 trillion, 150 billion. Those were what we said the savings were going to be. I'm concerned that with this legislation as well, we are not going to see the real numbers. The numbers that are put out are not going to be, in fact, the real ones. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Mr. Moran.
One of the most memorable moments of the hearing came when Representative Stacey Plaskett challenged Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over the economy and the financial pressures many Americans continue to face. Plaskett began by thanking the witness for appearing before the committee before shifting to what she described as the importance of discussing the economy based on facts rather than political talking points. She argued that when President Trump returned to office, several key economic indicators, including unemployment, inflation, and economic growth, had already been moving in a positive direction. Citing government economic data, she said inflation had been trending downward from its post-pandemic highs and that the United States remained one of the world's strongest performing major economies. Plaskett also highlighted wage growth during the previous administration, noting that lower-income workers experienced some of the largest real wage gains. But the exchange took an unexpected turn when Scott Bessent interrupted her remarks. Plaskett immediately stopped him. In one of the hearing's most talked about moments, she firmly reminded the Treasury Secretary that members control their own questioning time. She told him that in this House, witnesses do not interrupt lawmakers and instructed him to wait until she finished before responding. The exchange drew attention because it set the tone for the rest of her remarks, making clear she intended to complete her line of questioning without interruption. After restoring order, Plaskett turned back to the economy. She argued that despite campaign promises to lower the cost of living, Americans were still paying high prices for everyday necessities. Whether prices had remained elevated or continued increasing, she said the central promise of reducing costs for ordinary families had not been fulfilled. She also questioned claims that the legislation under consideration would prevent the largest tax increase in history. According to Plaskett, Congress was not limited to choosing between the existing tax law and the proposal before it. She argued lawmakers could negotiate a middle ground solution rather than framing the debate as an all-or-nothing decision. The Congresswoman also challenged several tax provisions promoted as relief for working Americans. She noted that only a relatively small share of workers regularly receive overtime pay and that only a limited percentage of Americans earn significant income through tips. As a result, she questioned whether those provisions would meaningfully reduce financial pressure for most households. Plaskett then brought the discussion back to kitchen table economics. She pointed to the continued costs of groceries, including bread, bacon, butter, and eggs, as examples of expenses families still face every week. Her broader argument was that Americans judge the economy less by political messaging and more by what they pay at the grocery store, the gas station, and the checkout counter. She also expressed skepticism about projected government savings from spending reductions and questioned whether promised fiscal savings would match the numbers being presented publicly. Throughout her remarks, Plaskett's central message remained consistent. If the goal is to improve life for working families, lawmakers should focus on policies that produce measurable reductions in everyday costs rather than relying on promises that may not reach most Americans. The hearing reflected a broader debate taking place across Washington. Supporters of the administration argue that tax cuts, spending reforms, and deregulation will strengthen long-term economic growth. Critics counter that many Americans continue to struggle with high living costs and have yet to see the financial relief they were promised. Whether voters ultimately judge the economy by economic statistics or by their own household budgets remains one of the defining political questions heading into future debates.